All right, in this lesson, I wanted to talk about some quick object conversions that we can do in order to take an existing pandas object and convert it to a native Python data type. So many times in my line of work, I have to take something in pandas like a series and convert it to a Python list or perhaps a string of comma-separated values. And I just wanted to show you 3 of those operations in this lesson. I'll begin by executing our code from the previous lesson to load our baby names information from the New York City data website. So if you're following along, you can just pause the video and copy my URL and then just get the data frame on your end. Or of course, feel free to import any data frame that you wish, any CSV file that you wish, and just practice on your own data set. So let's begin by talking about how we can convert a pandas series to a list. Sometimes you want to take things from pandas and bring it back into Python. So let's extract one of our series here. So let's do baby names, and in square brackets I'm going to reference the NM column, which represents our names. And there is a convenience method called toList. So if I write toList, no spaces, no underscores there, and of course conclude with the pair of parentheses, that's going to generate a Python list for me with all of the values from the series now represented as all of the elements of my new Python list. Let's extract the series again. And there is actually a method available on a series called toFrame, which converts a series to a data frame. Now, I mean, ideally, a series is intended to be used as a one-dimensional, one-column data set, and a data frame is meant to be used as a two-dimensional data set. But what I find is that it's much easier to join and merge 2 data frames together than it is to merge a data frame and a series. So many times what I like to do on a series is to call the toFrame method, and there is an underscore there, and parentheses at the end. And that's basically going to take our series and just convert it into a one-column data frame. That's another popular operation I do. So I'm also going to collapse this by clicking the gray area here. And finally, perhaps the most common operation I have to do is to provide a comma-separated string of all of the values within a specific column, let's say. So let's say I want to extract a string of all of the names in my NM column. So what I have to do here, first of all, is extract my series, so baby names NM. So there's my series. And I'm just going to add a little bit of space up here. So what I'm actually going to do is kind of put together the pieces of this puzzle one by one. So I know I have to begin with something called the join method, which is called on a string in Python, and that basically specifies what's going to separate everything within the iterable that I provide as the argument. So the join method is basically going to loop over something like a list, or in our case it's going to be a series, and then it's going to take all of those elements and combine them together, concatenate them together, and here in double quotes is where we specify what we'd like every element to be separated by. So I'm going to write some double quotes, and I'm going to put a comma and a space. So between every one of our names, I'm going to put a comma and a space in our resulting string. And it's on this string that I'm going to call the join method. And within these parentheses is where I know that I'm going to want to include the values from my pandas series. Now what I have to do here is specify the operation that I want to do for every value within my baby names NM series. So I'm just going to write it out. I want to take those names, and I want to make sure that they're strings by passing them into Python's str function. And this name right here, by the way, is the temporary variable that I'm going to assign to every value within my NM column as I loop over it. So after this, I'm going to write for name in, and then just delete the space right here. So basically the way this reads is for every name, and name is just my temporary variable, for every name in this series, pass it to Python's str function to make sure it's a string, and then when you're done with that, join all those strings together and separate each one of them with a comma and a space. So when I execute this, you can see right here we have Geraldine, Gia, and Gianna. When I execute this, we're going to now get a Python string, and you can see at the very top we have Geraldine, Gia, and Gianna, and they're all separated by a comma and a space, as are all the other name values throughout this very long string that we've generated here. This is especially helpful if you want to, copy this data and paste it somewhere else. So converting for me from a series to a comma-separated string is something I very commonly do. So these are just some quick object conversions. I didn't get to discuss them in any of the previous modules, so I wanted to make sure that we didn't forget to cover them. But basically in here we talked about how we can convert a series to either a Python list, a data frame or a string of comma separated values.